I am told that Senator Sanders is with us. Bernie, are you there?
Right here, Tom. How are you?
Oh, great. And it's great to see you as well. Senator Sanders is with us. He, as I mentioned, just to reset this up, you're not going to be available tomorrow, so we're doing Brunch with Bernie a day early. What's going on, Bernie?
Well, Tom, a whole lot is going on. This morning, Senator Barbara Boxer and I introduced, I think, the strongest legislation ever introduced to address the global warming crisis, in which scientists today are telling us that if we don't get our act together and cut greenhouse gas emissions, we are looking, and it could even be higher than this, but an 8-degree Fahrenheit increase in the Earth's temperature. Wow. And that is by the end of the century, Tom. And that is just unbelievable.
Well, if you look up the Permian extinction was caused in part by a 5-degree increase in temperature, which then melted the methane crystals, which added another 5 degrees, so it was a total of 10 degrees Celsius increase. And that extinction was the worst of the 5. It killed off 95% of all life on Earth.
Well, I hope we're not going to be killing off 95% of life on Earth. But what we do know is if we don't get our act together, if the planet's temperature continues to rise, you're looking, and people have got to understand this. This is what scientists are now predicting. And some of them say that this 8 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of the century, that may be a conservative estimate. But what you're looking at is that great American cities like New Orleans, Boston, or Miami might be underwater. What you're looking at is that terrible hurricanes like Irene and Sandy, and we just spent $60 billion helping the people of New York and New Jersey deal with Sandy. These can be occurring more frequently and with more severity, a huge cost to the taxpayers of this country. If you see more drought in the United States and around the world, that means that the price of food is going to soar because there will not be the land available to grow crops that produce the food that we eat. You're looking at more wars and international instability because you're going to have populations all over the world fighting for limited water and land resources to get the water they need to drink and the food they need to stay alive. So we have got a real serious problem. What we do in this legislation is introduce a fee on carbon, and it only impacts the top 3,000 polluters in the country. We protect communities from fracking. We make very significant investments in energy efficiency and sustainable energy. As a nation, we waste a huge amount of energy. We try to deal with that issue, invest in wind, solar, geothermal, biomass. We're going to weatherize 1 million homes. We're going to pass trade legislation which says that companies that are continuing to pollute the planet cannot bring their products into this country without a significant tariff. We're going to have a major rebate program to help working families deal with any increased costs in fuel that they may incur.
Wow.
But the time is now to understand the severity of the climate change issue and to move aggressively to address it.
We'll be back with more. Senator Bernie Sanders. Brunch with Bernie, a day early here on the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And, of course, drop by Senator Sanders' website, sanders.senate.gov. Great news source. You can sign up for the Bernie Buzz, his newsletter. Hey, Senator Sanders?
Yes.
Shall we take a couple of free speech phone calls over the next 4 minutes, and then when we come back, rejoin our commercial stations? You can wrap up what's going on?
Tom, before we do that, let me just say this. Mm-hmm. The other issue out there that I am working on, we just introduced legislation on with 8 co-sponsors, deals with saving the post office. As you know, the Postmaster General has proposed doing away with Saturday mail. I fear very much that this is part of a broader approach which over the years will cut rural post offices, processing plants, shrink the workforce at the post office very significantly. Many of the jobs there are held by veterans, minorities. They're decent paying jobs, union jobs. We don't want to lose them. Last point that I want to make, when we talk about deficit reduction or any of the fiscal issues that we're dealing with, there was a study that just came out this week. And this is what the study said, Tom. Between 2009 and 2011, over 100% of all of the new income created in America went to the top 1%. The bottom 99% lost ground, didn't make a nickel. All of the new income went to the wealthiest people in this country. So when we talk about deficit reduction, our goal has got to be, do not balance the budget on the backs of the elderly, the children, the middle class, working families, the sick. The wealthiest people doing phenomenally well, corporations doing phenomenally well. They've got to be asked to help us with deficit reduction. Don't balance the budget on the most vulnerable people in this country.
Yeah. Okay. We have 2 minutes to the break here. Do you want to
okay, let's take some questions.
Take a quick call. Okay. Yep. Let me see here. Paul in South Lyon, Michigan. Paul, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, how you doing, Senator Sanders? It's a great honor to talk to you again. I'm from a political family also. My grandfather was a state senator, and my uncle's a retired judge. But anyway, I want to get your opinion on, I think we should start calling it, instead of climate change and global warming, which are two terms pushed by the Republican talking heads because it makes it sound not that bad. Let's start calling it what it really is, and that's global extinction and climate disaster. Because there's already been thousands of people die from global warming in, tornadoes and droughts, and and that's where it's leading. It's leading to, eventual extinction of all life, basically.
Well, I think your point is a good point. What we have got to understand, I just met yesterday, and a number of us in the Senate, with 4 leading scientists on climate. And if you sat there and you listened to what they have to say, these are people from academia, and important organizations. This is not fringe groups. These are mainstream people sitting there and telling us that cities will be underwater, that the forest fires that we're now seeing will grow even greater, that drought will be worse, that flooding will be worse, and the caller is right. We are seeing the impact of climate destruction right now, and it will only get worse. So I hope that people demand that the Congress finally stop ignoring this issue and move forward very aggressively for the sake of our kids and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren.
It's Brunch with Bernie a day early. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us taking your calls right after this. Welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, our Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early. Senator Sanders with us today. He won't be around tomorrow for the show, so we're very, very pleased that he could make time to be with us today. And Senator, you want to pick up some calls, or did you want to add anything?
No. Let's do the calls.
Okay. Peter in Voorheesville, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Well, thank you, Tom. And Senator Sanders, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. My question is, and I think I've got this right, and I wanted to run it by you. In 1965, LBJ signed Medicare and Medicaid, and it was passed in exchange for a drop on the tax on the rich from 91% to 74%. And if so, what are the poor getting today for their permanent Bush tax breaks that are permanent now?
Okay. I don't know the history. I wish I did, Peter. What we have now are poor people, by and large, are not paying federal income tax. And the sensible reason for that is that real income for millions of low-income people has actually gone down in recent years. And we have almost as many people living in poverty today as we have had in the modern history of America, somewhere around 46 million. So you have in our country today, as I mentioned earlier, an incredibly unequal distribution of income and wealth, where currently all of the new income is going to the top 1%, where the top 1% earns more income than the bottom 50%. We have one family in this country, the Walton family, owning more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people, where the gap between the very rich and everybody else is growing wider. That's the reality. One of the ways that we hope to address this, by the way, and the president, to his credit, mentioned this, is to raise the minimum wage. My own feeling is it should be higher than $9 an hour. I'd like to see it closer to 10. But bottom line is we have millions of people working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, struggling to take care of their families on very low wages, still living in poverty. That minimum wage has to go up.
James in Belvedere, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, hey, it's an honor, as always. Yeah, I agree with like 110% of what you say, Bernie. I'm a huge fan. Anyway, I would suggest, since we're a tax-based society, and I understand, there's so many people that don't even qualify for the minimum tax, which is a crime. Basically, that's nothing to tout about. 47% of people don't even meet the minimum criteria of the tax structure. But we could use people that are paying into the federal income tax, that are fortunate enough to have a job, that are get up and go and do that job. They're not retired yet. They're not indigent because we have other programs for that. They're not disabled.
James, your point?
In for a couple years. The point is, you can take that tax money, $2,000-$3,000, give it back to the homeowner, and to buy ecological, energy-efficient furnaces, water heaters, and make the manufacturing base, windows, insulation, make the manufacturing base be only qualify for products that are manufactured, produced, and sold retail in this country. So not only are you increasing your ecological advantages.
Got it. Let's get Bernie's thoughts on this, James.
James is absolutely right. What he is saying is that we should invest in weatherization. I know that in Vermont we have probably led the country in terms of making our homes more energy efficient. We have a long way to go, and we're ahead of the rest of the country. So there are millions and millions of people out there who are now spending huge sums of money trying to heat their homes when their homes are very energy inefficient, poor insulation, poor windows, poor doors, poor roofing. We build those products in America. We have Americans installing those products, retrofitting those homes. You save money for consumers, cut their heating bill way down, create jobs in America, and perhaps most importantly, you significantly cut greenhouse gas emissions. This is a win-win-win situation. It is exactly what the legislation that I introduced today does.
Danette in Hinesville, Georgia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hello, you're on the air, Danette. Danette? I heard you say hello. Okay. Bernie, Danette's question was, is there still a way to reform the filibuster? And I'm asking that because I'm curious, too.
Well, interestingly enough, I just came from, as you know, I'm an independent and I caucus with the Democrats. There is a lot of angst that the Republicans, in an almost, not quite, but an almost unprecedented way, may be requiring a 60-vote margin for Chuck Hagel to be Secretary of Defense. And I tell you that the majority leader mentioned in the caucus, we can rebuild, we can bring up once again that issue of the talking filibuster. I voted against the legislation that passed a few weeks ago because it didn't go far enough. At the end of the day, what I want to see is people who are in opposition should have all the time they need to speak. They want to be on the floor for 24 hours, that's fine. Somebody else comes on, that's fine. But at the end of all of the speeches, we need a vote, and that vote should be majority rules. Majority rules, 51 votes wins. And that, in fact, can be introduced and any time. In fact, that issue just came up a few hours ago.
Yeah, and that rules change actually takes us back to what the Constitution says, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't the Constitution say a majority in both houses?
The Constitution does. What people will argue is the Constitution makes mention of percentages to override a veto. You need 2/3.
Right.
To do this, you may that. But there is certainly no mention in the Constitution about any 60-vote necessity.
So the filibuster
So certainly you could have 50 votes.
Right. So the filibuster is just it is the effect.
A rule passed by the Senate. That's all it is.
To govern itself. Yeah. Okay. We'll be back right after this break with Senator Bernie Sanders. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting. The guy I think of as America's senator, although Vermonters know and love him as their own. Senator Bernie Sanders. Check out his website, sanders.senate.gov, for more information on what Bernie's up to. In particular, this incredible piece of legislation that he and Barbara Boxer just proposed in the Senate.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And, of course, you can drop by the Thom Hartmann Program website, thomhartmann.com. We have a new app where you can keep up on our daily stack, Sue's Daily Stack, every story we talk about.
Hi, Bernie.
Hey,
Bernie?
Tom. Yep, how are you?
Okay, I'm one of the striking school bus drivers that's trying to stop the race to the bottom. But with our advance, I don't understand why Social Security doesn't follow suit and just take the cap off for Social Security taxing and just have Social Security secure for infinitum.
Tom, I agree with you. And as a matter of fact, I have introduced legislation along with Congressman Peter DeFazio to do just that. What that legislation does, in fact, is it says that right now, as you know, Tom, if one person makes $1 million a year and another person makes $113,000 a year, they both pay the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund because of the cap on taxable income. If you lift that cap, and you don't have to start at $114,000, you can create a bubble and then begin at $250,000. So the only people paying more into the Social Security Trust Fund are people earning more than $250,000. If you do just that, Social Security will be solvent for the next 75 years. Right now, Social Security can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 21 years, has a $2.7 trillion surplus. But obviously, we have to do better. We have to make Social Security solvent for a lot longer period of time, and that is exactly, in my view, the way to do it.
Vera in San Diego, California, watching Free Speech TV. Vera, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, and thank you very much for both of you for everything you do. Really appreciate it. My concern is that in the State of the Union address that President Obama again brought up TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has the provisions that could lower our environmental standards here and further contribute to climate change. The politics of it, they want to fast-track it. My question to Bernie is, do we have a chance to stop this or drastically amend it so that the more onerous provisions on our country, will not take place?
Well, Vera, I agree with your concerns absolutely. I don't recall having ever voted for any of these trade agreements, which is NAFTA or permanent normal trade relations with China. I think the end result of these trade agreements has been to allow companies in this country to shut down factories here, move to low-wage countries, and cost us a whole lot of decent-paying jobs. And I share that concern with this trade agreement. Actually, later this afternoon, I'll be meeting with one of the leading trade activists to talk about this issue. But we will do everything we can to see that this trade agreement is as non-onerous as we can make it, and that's what we'll try to do.
Kevin in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Kevin, listening on Sirius? Has That's interesting. That's two callers. I wonder if we have a problem with one of our phone lines. Ken in Geneva, Illinois. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
I'm glad to talk to both of you. I was wondering about the amendments to the Constitution, and somebody said, "Oh, well, you can't amend anything in the Bill of Rights," and I didn't believe that, and I can't find it. There was only 3 amendments that you're not supposed to touch in the Bill of Rights, but the Second Amendment is not one of them. And is that true?
No, I don't think it is true, Ken. I think, the people of this country and the Congress of this country, in a sense, can do anything that they want. They can repeal constitutional amendments. They could add new constitutional amendments. They could rewrite constitutional amendments. So I think, we are a democracy and people have the right to do whatever we think makes sense.
Yeah, a great example of that is repealing prohibition. It was put in place by constitutional amendment. It was taken out by constitutional amendment. Right. Carol in Apache Junction, Arizona. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you so much for the work you're going to do on climate change. As an environmentalist, that's really one of my most important issues. This time I was calling on something a little more personal. I don't know if you've heard from any of your constituents or not, but Medicare for some reason has moved some drugs, one that I take, Nexium, into something they call a step therapy program. And instead of getting a 90-day supply and 3 renewals, now my doctor has to call in every time. I only get a 30-day supply, and they've also upped the copay. Have you heard anything about this? There's no good reason that they should do that to something like Nexium. It's not a narcotic.
Carol, I apologize. I do not know the answer to your question. The issue that we are working on, which is a broader issue, obviously, that goes beyond your own personal concern there, is that right now Medicare is unable to negotiate prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry because of a provision placed in there by the Republicans in the Medicare Part D prescription drug program. So that's a broad issue that we're trying to work on. We think we can save substantial sums of money for Medicare and for taxpayers, but I have to plead ignorance to the particular issue that you raised.
Dan in Valley Cottage, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
How you doing, Senator? I'm a huge admirer of yours, and I wanted to thank you for your service to the country. Second, I wanted to ask you, regarding feed-in tariffs for solar power that they use in Germany, and the success that they've had there and the huge popularity that they've had there in making profitable businesses out of, individual homeowners who just have extra solar power now to sell it back to the grid. Is there any way that you could convince Republicans, if they're true capitalists, if they could be convinced that to show them the numbers and show them that feed-in tariffs work, it becomes very successful businesses. It could thrive all over the country because we have so much more sun than they do in Germany, and that you can make really profitable businesses out of the entire Midwest, the West Coast, down in Florida. It could be a huge opportunity. I'm just not sure why we don't do that in the United States to explode solar power and make it the resource that we...
Dan, thank you. That's an excellent question. And nothing I can add to it. I think your point is exactly right. Now, here's the good news. And I think the president made mention of this during his speech. We are making, people may not know it. We have made in the last 3 or 4 years significant progress in sustainable energy, wind and solar, among others. The price of solar panels has plummeted. What Dan is suggesting is that through a feed-in tariff, you can encourage more people to install solar panels. The more people who are using solar panels, everything being equal, the lower the price will be because companies will be producing even more. We will be saving money on our fuel bills. We'll be creating jobs in America. We'll be cutting greenhouse gas emissions. It is, in my view, exactly what we should be doing.
Roger in Hockley, Texas, watching on Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, I was wondering if the president, through executive order, declare a war on climate change and fund, say, through the Defense Department, a jobs program to build a smart grid, build and install solar and wind systems on every house in the Sun Belt, or starting in the Sun Belt and moving out from there, at no charge to the residents, and then tax carbon, all carbon, to pay for this. Get rid of the unemployment for any healthy, physically fit persons, and you'd have zero unemployment, or it would be a potential to have zero unemployment.
Well, let me say this, Roger. The President, in his State of the Union address, did mention the fact that he wanted to see legislation passed. Ultimately, legislation is the most effective way to deal with these problems in a comprehensive approach. The legislation that Senator Barbara Boxer and I have introduced would, I think, address many of the issues you have just raised, and that is the way to go. If we cannot get legislation through, the President himself, through executive order, does have a certain amount of power, and certainly the Environmental Protection Agency does have a certain amount of power in terms of enforcing the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act and stopping carbon pollution. So if we can't get good legislation passed, then we want to see the President act to the degree that he can, and we want to see the EPA act. But long term, if we are serious about cutting carbon pollution, if we're serious about reversing global warming, if we're serious about creating the millions of jobs we can create by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, then we need comprehensive legislation to do that. And that is exactly what Senator Boxer and I are working on.
Bernie, we have just 30 seconds or so. The legislation that you and Senator Boxer introduced today, are you looking for more co-sponsors?
We sure are. We sure are. And if the listeners out there, we just dropped the bill today, so I don't even think we have a number on it. But if listeners want to call up their senators or members of the House and say that they want to get on board this legislation, that would be terrific. It's the Sanders-Boxer environmental bill just dropped today.
Great. The Sanders-Boxer environmental bills just dropped today, and you can call both your senators and your member of the House of Representatives. If you go to callcongress.org, you'll find toll-free numbers as well as the main switchboard number for Congress.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour a day early here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders. Welcome back. And Rick in Sac City, Iowa, you are on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Yes, one little comment before I get to my point. I've lived 42 years in my house without a gun, and I felt safe all 42 years. My comment is, I'm glad that the government finally stepped in and made the auto industry bring up their standards, but I've been raised in the lower income bracket, and most people $20 an hour on down aren't going to be driving anything more than a 15-year-old car. Is there anything the government can do about that?
Well, that's an excellent point. And that is why, amidst much criticism, we have provided tax rebates, tax credits for people who are going to buy energy-efficient automobiles. I think the caller is making the point that even with those tax credits, it is hard for lower-income people or working-class people to pay for these more expensive types cars. He's absolutely right, and that is an issue that we should address. I think there are people from all income brackets who would like the opportunity to drive cars to get 50, 60, 80 miles a gallon, to drive hybrids, to drive electric cars, and we've got to figure out a way to make those vehicles more affordable.
Myron in Sharon, Pennsylvania, watching us on Free Speech TV on Dish Network. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator, I have a question that hasn't been there. I haven't heard anybody ask it before, and that's on the Social Security. Back in early 1970, the Congress is putting IOU notes into the Social Security system and taking the Social Security money and spending it elsewhere. I wonder, and I understand from what I've read in that there's over $2.5 trillion taken out of our Social Security system. How do they plan on putting that back in, or are we just, for my past 50 years, they just took my money?
Nope, they didn't take your money. And I know there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of misinformation which goes around on the web. The books are very clear, and really nobody disputes it. Myron, today the Social Security Trust Fund has a $2.7 trillion surplus, can pay every benefit owed for the next 21 years, at which point it would be able to pay based on new revenue coming in from workers and employers, about 75% in 20 years. What Social Security does, which is, makes eminent sense, you don't want that $2.7 trillion to be put under the president's mattress. It has to be invested. It's invested in the safest form of securities, which are treasury bonds, and it earns interest, and that interest is a significant part of the revenue coming into Social Security. So no one disputes that. Social Security does have $2.7 trillion surplus. It is being invested. It earns interest. We can pay out all benefits for the next 21 years.
Brunch with Bernie, a day early here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early. Senator Sanders taking your calls. Rick in Alberta, Canada. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Senator, good work on the legislation. And it's often said the U.S. has to lead in certain things. In this case, I'm glad to see this because our Prime Minister, Harper, neocon, of course, but his biggest excuse has always been his excuse for doing nothing on climate change has been, we have to wait to see what the U.S. is going to do. So hopefully we take that excuse away.
Well, thank you, Rick. You're right. The United States is the wealthiest, most powerful nation on earth. We should lead. We can lead. And if the United States does the right thing, I hope that Canada will follow us, and in fact that the rest of the world will follow us. And the bottom line here is that I personally believe, that when you are aggressive in cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and when we are aggressive in saving the planet from all of the destruction which we are looking at, it makes absolutely good economic sense to transform our energy system. And when we do that, we not only prevent destruction, but we also create a whole lot of jobs moving to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. So, Rick, we look forward to Canada following us.
Mark in New York City, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Senator Sanders, I just want to wish you a very happy Valentine's Day. You too, Tom.
Thank you.
My question is, with the transaction tax and the problems that we're going to have getting Congress passing any kind of tax, couldn't the executive office instruct the Commerce Department to put some kind of a fee on these transactions, as they are interstate commerce, aren't they?
I think probably not. I think the law is pretty clear that the concept of a transaction tax, I suspect you're talking on stock transfers, is something that Congress is going to have to do. It's something that I would like to see done for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a way to raise significant revenue in a fairly progressive way. You can structure it so that it only applies to the stock brokerage firms and upper income people. And number two, it will also put a damper on a lot of the speculation which currently takes place in Wall Street, which in fact has driven us into the recession that we're in right now. So I'm a strong supporter of a transaction tax on stocks, but it cannot be done unilaterally by the White House.
John in Santa Rosa, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon to you both. I have a question as regards the problems of the Postal Service. I just need some historical information. As we know, a large part of what's happening with them was the result of an onerous requirement placed on them by a lame duck session of Congress in 2006. I'm just wondering why, in the beginning of 2009, when the Democrats controlled both the White House and both chambers of Congress, why wasn't the Postal Service fixed then? Because presumably you could have gotten legislation out of the House of Representatives then. And I don't claim to be an expert on Senate rules, but I'm thinking because it's budgetary, maybe you could have gotten it out of the Senate through this budget reconciliation process.
John, that is a very fair question, and I can't give you the answer to it. All that I can tell you is that last year, having been informed by the postal unions and people throughout the state of Vermont about what was going on, I kind of jumped into the issue. We put together a coalition. We passed a reasonably good bill in the Senate, bipartisan, which, among other things, would have done away with this onerous funding of pre-health retirement benefits, of retirement benefits for postal workers, retirees. And right now we're continuing that effort. We have just the other day introduced really strong legislation to address the postal crisis, and we're going to stay focused on it. But I can't tell you why it wasn't moved on in 2009.
Steve in Haymarket, Virginia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, I was wondering why no one has introduced as legislation a bill that would convert our power grid to superconductive plastic. That would eliminate the need to produce 40% of our power.
Steve, you're over my head in physics on that one. I just don't know the answer to it. I'm sorry.
Gabriel in La Mesa, California. We have 2 minutes until the end of the hour. Gabriel, quick one for Bernie?
Yeah, my question is that I read somewhere in a public opinion poll about climate, the greenhouse gases and the climate changes, that most Americans just think that it's something that should be on the back burner. It's something they're concerned about, but it's something that maybe in 10 years they should be worried about. And I was kind of surprised at that. I thought they would be more worried about it. Is that still something that you find today where a lot of Americans are concerned about it, but not a pressing issue?
Well, here's what I think happened, Gabriel. I think it happened in the United States, and it's happened around the world. And you have to appreciate that in opposition to us are huge amounts of money coming into the process from the fossil fuel industry, from the coal companies, from the oil companies, who are funding organizations, funding media, which is trying to suggest to people that we're not really quite sure about the causes of climate change, et cetera, et cetera. So we got real powerful opposition there. I think a number of years ago, people were very concerned. I think the right wing and the fossil fuel industry poured a lot of money in it to confuse people. I think the support for change went down. But you know what's happened? In recent years, people have observed, not by watching TV and hearing pundits, but with their own eyes, exactly what is happening. If you're living in the Southwest, you're seeing unprecedented drought. You're seeing forest fires. If you're living in the Northeast, you went through Hurricane Sandy, you went through Hurricane Irene. All over if you're used to ice fish in Minnesota, you're suddenly finding that those lakes aren't freezing anymore. And people are beginning to catch on. Something real is happening, which has devastating impact on the world today and in the future.